They say every town has its secrets, but some secrets should never be uncovered. Just beyond the edge of Hollow Creek, past the crumbling willow trees and the forgotten cemetery, lies a rusted playground swallowed by weeds and shadows. No one goes there anymore. Not since the disappearances, not since the incident. The once joyous laughter of children has long been replaced by an eerie silence, only broken by the haunting creak of old swing chains moving back and forth, with no one sitting in them. But what happens when curiosity becomes obsession? What happens when teenagers, driven by thrill and defiance, cross the rotting gate and step foot into something far more ancient and far more evil than they could have ever imagined? This isn't just a story about a cursed playground. It's about what lurks beneath it, what calls from the rust, what never stops swinging. Would you dare enter a place where the swings move on their own? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you risk it for the thrill or stay far, far away? If you're loving this vibe already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with your horror-loving friends. Trust me, you're going to want someone with you for this one. Now, if you're ready, let's step into the shadows. The rain had stopped just an hour before sunset, leaving behind a thick fog that clung to the trees like ghostly fingers. The pavement glistened under the dimming light as Elijah Carter kicked at a loose pebble, his breath visible in the cold evening air. He wasn't supposed to be out this late, not after what had happened last week. But Elijah wasn't like the other kids in Hollow Creek. He didn't believe in ghost stories. He investigated them. His friends trailed behind reluctantly. Jonah, who always wore his hoodie like a security blanket, muttered, "I swear, Eli, if this is another wild goose chase like that haunted laundromat—" "This isn't like the laundromat," Elijah interrupted. "This one's real. 4 kids vanished from that park last year. Gone. No trace. Police closed the case, said they ran away." "And you believe the swings are cursed?" asked Maya, the sharp-eyed daughter of Hollow Creek's librarian. "You're really buying into that old urban legend?" Elijah stopped and turned, his flashlight beam dancing in the fog. "I've seen them, moving. No wind, no kids, just swinging, like someone's still there." The group fell silent. Jonah swallowed hard. Maya crossed her arms. Behind them, Natalie, the youngest of the group, shivered and zipped her jacket higher. She hadn't spoken since they left the neighborhood. The path wound through the woods, branches clawing at their jackets, the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves thick in the air. Finally, they reached it. The playground stood in the middle of a clearing like a forgotten corpse. Rusted monkey bars leaned sideways. A seesaw creaked in the distance. And there, dead center, were the swings. 2 of them. Black rubber seats, chains red with rust. One dangled lifeless. The other rocked gently, as if it had just been pushed. No one spoke. Elijah stepped forward, the beam from his flashlight flickering, as if unsure it wanted to reveal what lay ahead. "This is it," he whispered. "I don't like this," Natalie murmured. "We shouldn't be here." "You're the one who said you wanted to prove your brother wrong," Elijah said, flashing a grin. "He said you were too scared for this." Natalie frowned but didn't argue. Suddenly, Jonah's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and frowned. "No service," he muttered. "That's normal out here," Maya replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Elijah approached the swings, each step slow and deliberate. The wind had long died, yet the swing kept rocking. He knelt beside it, examining the base of the frame. No wires, no motors, nothing. As the others watched nervously, Elijah reached out and stopped the swing with his hand. For a moment, everything stilled. Then the second swing, which had been completely still, creaked loudly and began moving back and forth on its own. Natalie gasped. "Okay," Jonah said, backing up. "This is not funny anymore." "I didn't touch that one," Elijah whispered. His voice trembled for the first time. The swing picked up speed, moving faster than wind alone could push it. The chains rattled like bones clattering in a tomb. Maya stepped forward, squinting. "Wait, are those scratch marks on the seat?" They gathered around it. Deep grooves had been carved into the rubber seat, claw-like, too big for a child. "Those weren't here before," Elijah said. Before? How do you know? Natalie asked. Elijah looked at her, then turned away. I came here yesterday. Alone? Maya hissed. Are you stupid? I just wanted to see it, but it wasn't like this then. Suddenly the air grew colder. A breathless silence fell over the clearing. Even the birds had stopped chirping. Jonah screamed. They spun around to see him standing by the merry-go-round, pale and pointing. There's someone over there, in the woods. They turned. For a second, all they saw was fog. Then, movement. A dark figure, tall, with twisted limbs and a face that didn't seem to have eyes. It disappeared behind a tree. Run! Maya shouted. They bolted, but the path they came from no longer looked the same. The fog had thickened. Trees seemed to have moved. It was like the playground had shifted the forest around them. They ran blindly, breath ragged, twigs snapping underfoot. Branches scraped their skin as they pushed through the brush. Suddenly, Natalie screamed. They turned and found her standing still, eyes wide, mouth open, but no sound came out. What is it? Elijah asked, grabbing her shoulder. She pointed. Her lips trembled. A child's doll lay at her feet. Its head was cracked, its dress stained, and stitched crudely into its fabric were the letters E.C. Elijah stepped back in horror. That's mine, he said. That's my old doll. You had a doll? Jonah blinked. When I was 5. My mom got rid of it years ago. No, Natalie whispered. It found you. A scream pierced the fog, this time not from any of them. It came from the swings. They turned. The swings were moving violently now, back and forth like they were possessed. And on one of them, no one could deny it, sat a figure. Pale, small, head bowed, hair matted with dirt. A child. Jonah backed away. We have to go. We have to go now. The figure on the swing slowly raised its head. Its mouth opened wider than any human should. And then the lights from their flashlights blinked off. Every single one. They stood in pitch black. Something breathed behind them. Something big. The breath wasn't human. It was deep, ragged, like the air itself was being torn apart. Jonah turned first, swinging his flashlight wildly, but it refused to light. The others fumbled with theirs, tapping them, shaking them, whispering desperate pleas into the darkness. Still nothing. Then from the shadows behind them, a whisper slithered out. Elijah! The name drifted through the trees like mist, elongated, stretched, and soaked in malice. Maya yanked Elijah's arm. We need to move, now. No one argued. They ran again, feet slamming through layers of dead leaves and mud, hands grasping blindly at low branches as they forced their way forward. The woods were warped. What should have been a straight return path now curved and twisted like a serpent, doubling back, taking them in circles. I know this place, Elijah shouted, breathless. The woods weren't this thick before. You're not the only one seeing this, right? Jonah panted. Trees. Moving. They were. Subtle, slow. But every time someone turned their back, a tree would appear closer than before. A branch that hadn't been there would scratch across their face. The forest was alive, and it hated them. Natalie stumbled over something buried beneath the leaves. She hit the ground hard, her knees scraped and bleeding. Elijah stopped to help her, but she looked back toward the clearing with wide, tear-filled eyes. It's following us. They all turned. Through the trees, dim and distorted, the playground was still visible. But now, more swings had appeared. 6, then 8, all moving, all occupied. Every swing carried a pale figure. Children, dozens of them, unmoving, expressionless, eyes hollow. And in the center of them, one swing swung higher than the rest. Its occupant wasn't a child. It was tall, skeletal, hunched forward with elongated arms that dragged on the ground. Its head tilted sideways with every pass like a pendulum. Don't look, Natalie whispered. Don't make eye contact. I read somewhere, if you see them, they see you. They backed away, but it was too late. One by one, the swings stopped. All the figures turned their heads, slowly, in unison, toward them. Oh no, Maya breathed. A sudden roar exploded through the trees. The creature from the center swing had stood, towering, hunched, its limbs cracking as they straightened. Its mouth opened, but no sound came out. Instead, every child on the swing screamed in unison. The forest trembled. They turned and fled. But the woods had changed again. There was no path, only towering trees and a thick carpet of fog. Jonah pointed. "There's a light there through the trees." They ran toward it. It led them to a cabin, old, crooked, its windows shattered, roof caved in at one corner. An old no trespassing sign was nailed crookedly to the door. "I don't care if the devil himself owns it," Maya said. "Inside now." Elijah shouldered the door open. It creaked, groaned, and nearly fell off its hinges. Inside was darkness and dust. The floorboards cried under their weight. Cobwebs hung like curtains. A fireplace sat cold and empty at the far wall, surrounded by piles of charred, unreadable papers. Natalie slammed the door behind them and locked it with a rusty bolt. Silence. For a moment, nothing moved but their ragged breathing. Then, whispers from the walls. Maya turned her flashlight on, and finally this time it lit. A weak beam, but enough to see the strange symbols carved into the wood. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them, burned deep into the panels. Circles, spirals, shapes that didn't belong to any known language. "These weren't graffiti," she said. "This was a ritual." Elijah wandered toward a dusty bookshelf. Most of the pages had rotted away, but one thick, leather-bound journal sat untouched. He picked it up. A brittle photograph slipped out from between the pages. He caught it. It showed a family, 2 parents, and a young girl with dark braids standing in front of a familiar playground. Except the swings were new in the photo, shiny, polished. On the back, scribbled in ink, "Before the curse began. Ayrte tolayte aimbete are." Elijah opened the journal. They built the playground over her grave. They didn't know. No one knew. She was buried deep, beneath roots and time and hate. But they disturbed her, and she woke up, hungry. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Maya looked over his shoulder. "It says she was a witch, killed by the town when she was just 12. They called her the Hollow Girl." "The Hollow Girl?" Jonah echoed. The walls groaned. Then, footsteps, on the roof, heavy, slow. Everyone froze. Then came a knock. At the door. 3 precise knocks. Elijah stepped back. Then another knock. But this one came from the window. Then another. From the back of the house. They were surrounded. "Don't open anything," Maya whispered. "Don't move." The lights flickered. Jonah dropped to the floor, covering his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" The journal flipped open on its own, pages fluttering until one stuck. "To seal her again, blood must be given. Willingly. Innocently. A sacrifice to the soil she sleeps in." Natalie read it aloud. Elijah looked at her. "What does that mean? Blood? A ritual?" The knocking stopped, and then from the shadows of the cabin, they heard a new voice. It sounded like a child. "Play with me." Natalie turned toward it. There was nothing there. Then the child giggled, a wet, choking sound. From the ceiling, a drop of blood fell and splashed onto Jonah's face. They looked up. A child's body was plastered to the ceiling, limbs twisted backward, its eyes black voids. "Oh my God!" Jonah screamed, scrambling back. The body began crawling, down the wall, its head rotating unnaturally as it descended. The voice returned, closer now. "Don't be scared. We can swing forever." The front door burst open, and there, silhouetted in the fog, stood the tall figure from the swings. It ducked beneath the doorframe and stepped inside. The creature's body scraped the doorframe as it entered, limbs bending at angles that made Elijah's stomach twist. It stood almost 7 feet tall, with skin like rotted parchment stretched thin over bone. Its head tilted sharply to the side as if the neck had been broken long ago and never set properly. No face, just a hollow oval where eyes should have been, and below it, a lipless mouth stretched into a permanent scream. It didn't walk. It glided. Natalie let out a cry and stumbled backward, crashing into a wooden chair that splintered beneath her. Maya grabbed her and pulled her away, both retreating toward the rear of the cabin. Jonah fumbled for the fireplace poker, gripping it like a sword. Elijah stayed frozen, clutching the old journal as though it might shield him. The thing's mouth opened wider. It breathed, not through lungs, but as if the air around it was being consumed. The fireless hearth behind it trembled, ash swirling into the air like a storm. "Who are you?" Elijah forced out, voice cracking. The figure stopped. It didn't answer, but something moved behind it. Children, dozens of them. They emerged from the mist outside, one after another, stepping through the threshold without hesitation. Pale, expressionless, each dressed in clothes that looked decades old, some soaked in mud, others burned, torn, stained with things Elijah didn't dare identify. They fanned out along the walls in silence, surrounding the group. Trapped. Jonah swung the poker at the tall figure. It passed clean through. No resistance. But the moment it passed through the creature's body, the poker snapped in half. Jonah dropped the pieces, hands trembling. "They're not real," Maya said, eyes scanning the room. "They're not physical. They're echoes, spirits." "Then how do we stop them?" Natalie whispered. "Maybe we don't," Elijah said, thumbing through the journal. "Maybe we survive." The creature extended one elongated finger and pointed to Elijah. A low, rumbling voice echoed through the cabin, not from the figure's mouth, but from every wall at once. "You read her words. Now carry her burden." The journal flew from Elijah's hands and landed open on the floor. The blood-red text bled across the page like it was still being written. New lines appeared. "One must take the mark. One must remain in the soil." "No," Elijah said. "No way." The ghost children began chanting, low and rhythmic, a language none of them recognized. Each word was like a knife to the ear, jagged and unnatural. Natalie clamped her hands over her head. "Make it stop!" Suddenly the creature lunged. Faster than thought, it crossed the room and seized Elijah by the chest, not with claws, not with physical touch, but with something inside. A pressure in his lungs, a burning behind his eyes, like something was crawling into him. He dropped to his knees. "Eli!" Maya screamed. The journal erupted into flames. Symbols danced in the air above it, spinning faster and faster, pulling dust and debris into a vortex. And then, everything froze. No sound, no motion, just silence. Elijah opened his eyes. He wasn't in the cabin anymore. He stood in the center of the playground, alone. But this version of the playground was different, new, clean. The swings gleamed. The grass was green. Children played, laughing, running. And standing at the base of the swing set was her, a girl, barefoot, pale, long dark braids. She turned and smiled. "Elijah," she said softly. He knew her. Or rather, he felt like he should know her. Her face was stitched into his memories, like a name he couldn't quite remember. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Her smile faded. "They forgot me," she said, looking down. "They built over me. They laughed and screamed and played, while I slept beneath them, cold, alone." "I'm sorry," Elijah whispered. She looked up. Her eyes were black voids, bottomless pits that pulled at his soul. I waited for someone to hear me, but no one did." "You're hurting people," he said. "So did they," she snapped. "They buried me in the dirt like trash. They let me rot in the shadows. I was 12. I wanted to swing." The image around them shifted, flashbacks overlaying reality. Men dragging her through the woods, torches, a crowd chanting, a shallow grave. A scream cut through the illusion. Elijah was back in the cabin, the fire around the journal now a full inferno. The ghost children swayed in their chant. Jonah had collapsed, eyes wide, mouth foaming slightly. Elijah grabbed Maya. "We have to finish it. The ritual." "How?" "The journal says blood must be given, willingly, innocently. That's the only way to put her back." Maya's face went pale. "Willingly?" "Elijah, no." He ignored her and looked at Natalie. "You said you read about these things. Sacrifices, curses. Can a proxy offer blood on behalf of another spirit?" Natalie blinked, thinking fast. Yes, sometimes. If the proxy carries the mark." "What mark?" Maya asked. Elijah pulled back his sleeve. A bloody symbol had appeared on his wrist. burned into his skin. Natalie gasped. She chose you. The children's chant grew louder. The cabin began to shake. Dust rained from the ceiling. The ghostly figure of the hollow girl reappeared, standing inches from Elijah now. I never got to swing, she whispered again. But you will. Elijah held his palm over the burning journal. No, he said. You want blood? Take it. But I'm not the only one who suffered. And with that, he sliced his hand open with a shard of glass from the broken window and let the blood drip onto the page. The symbols pulsed. The children screamed. The creature reeled back, mouth opening in an impossible howl. Light burst from the journal, engulfing the cabin. And then, darkness. Again. Elijah woke to silence. Not peace, not calm, just absence. A silence that felt wrong, like the air had been pulled from the room, the color leached from the world. His hand throbbed, crusted in dried blood. The journal lay beside him, smoking but intact. The cabin was dark again. The fire was gone. The ghost children, gone. Even the towering, faceless creature had vanished. The walls were scorched, and strange black vines had grown up from the cracks in the floorboards, curling around furniture, choking the light from the windows. Maya stirred near the fireplace, coughing as she sat up. What happened? I don't know, Elijah muttered, rising to his feet. But we're still here. Natalie groaned from across the room, blood dripping from a cut above her brow. Jonah, however, hadn't moved. He was lying by the corner, eyes open, but glassy, unmoving. Jonah, Maya called. She rushed to him, grabbing his hand. Come on, man, wake up. No response. Natalie crawled over, checked his pulse, then looked up slowly. He's gone. The silence deepened. Elijah knelt beside Jonah and closed his eyes. He didn't deserve this. Maya clenched her fists. None of us did. Then came a sound, a faint creaking, rhythmic and far away, a swing, moving, again. The group fell still. It was coming from outside. No, Natalie whispered. That's impossible. We stopped it. Elijah looked to the shattered window. Through the fog, he could just make out the playground again. It had moved, shifted, impossibly closer. What had once been deep in the woods now stood just feet from the front door, its decayed metal frame gleaming in the mist. The swings moved again, but this time, there was no wind. Maybe we didn't stop it, Maya said slowly. Maybe we woke it up more. Elijah stood. There's something we're missing. The journal said she was buried under the playground, that she needed to be sealed again. Maybe we only completed part of the ritual. Natalie reached into her jacket and pulled out the photograph they had found earlier, the family portrait. Her eyes scanned it closely, then narrowed. Wait, look here. Behind the girl, in the background, it's faint. But that's not just a playground. There's a stone, a marker they crowded in. It was there, just barely visible through the blur. An old, rounded stone peeking out behind the swing set, a grave marker. She was buried under it, Natalie whispered, and they knew. Whoever built this playground, they knew and did it anyway. We dig, Elijah said. We find that stone. We finish what they started. Assuming we don't die first, Maya muttered. They armed themselves with whatever tools they could find. Rusted shovels, a broken rake, even Jonah's snapped fireplace poker. As they opened the cabin door, the cold air slapped them in the face. The fog pressed in thick and wet, curling around their ankles like fingers. The swing set loomed in front of them. Closer now, too close, and on the center swing sat the girl with the braids. She smiled again, but this time, her eyes bled. Natalie shivered. Let's do this fast. They moved in a tight group, flashlights flickering. The earth beneath the swing was soft, recently disturbed. Dead grass, loose soil. They began to dig. Each strike into the dirt sent echoes into the fog. The girl watched. She didn't speak, just rocked gently, the creaking swing moaning like a dying animal. And then, as Elijah drove his shovel into the earth, it hit something hard. Clang. Stone. They brushed away the dirt. A small headstone. No name, just a single word carved in jagged, crude letters. Forgotten. Natalie stepped back. This is it. This is her. Suddenly, the swing stopped. The girl was gone. Elijah, Maya said, stepping closer. Hurry. He knelt by the grave and opened the journal again. There has to be a final phrase, a closing rite. The pages turned on their own, then stopped. The final passage read, return what was taken, bury the truth, bind the soul, speak the name, and seal the hollow. But we don't have her name, Natalie said. She was erased from history. The ground trembled, the fog parted, and out of it came the children. All of them, hundreds now, silent, watching, and behind them. She walked, not gliding this time, walking. Her face flickered, shifting between a young girl's and a withered corpse. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide. She pointed to the grave. You will swing. The children began to whisper again, all at once, their voices layered in a chorus of agony. Say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Maya turned to Natalie. What did the photo say? The back of it? Natalie dug into her pocket, pulled it out. On the back, in faded ink, beneath the year, Evelyn, our daughter, may she never be forgotten. Elijah, she shouted. Her name was Evelyn. The wind howled as Elijah placed his hand on the grave. He spoke the name. Evelyn. The world twisted. Reality folded in on itself. The sky turned black. The children screamed. The playground melted, literally melted, like plastic over fire. The swings drooped, metal warping. The trees bent backward, groaning as they snapped. Evelyn screamed too, but not in pain, in rage. She lunged at Elijah, too fast, too close. She reached for him, and her hands passed through him. But he felt it, cold. So cold it felt like fire. His breath froze. He dropped to his knees, and then everything stopped. Elijah's eyes shot open. But he wasn't in the forest. Not anymore. The sky above him was the color of bruises, heavy clouds sagging low like they were stitched to the earth. A red moon, bloated and too close, hung in the sky. The trees were gone. The cabin, the swings, the others, gone. Instead he stood in the center of a warped landscape. Rusted metal playground structures twisted into nightmarish shapes. Slides spiraled like corkscrews into black pits, and seesaws rocked themselves on cracked pavement, each creak sounding like a child's muffled scream. He was alone. Almost. Evelyn stood at the edge of the broken playground. No longer the small, sad girl with braids. She was taller now, older. Her limbs jerked slightly, like a marionette struggling against its strings. Her eyes were endless black, oozing shadows that slithered down her cheeks like ink. You said my name, she whispered. Now you carry it. Elijah stumbled backward. What is this place? She tilted her head. My home. The ground beneath him squirmed. He looked down and realized the soil was made of faces. Pressed into the earth were hundreds, no, thousands, of screaming mouths and wide eyes. Some twisted in terror, others expressionless, as though frozen in time. One of them looked disturbingly like Jonah. You brought me here, Evelyn said, her voice vibrating like a chorus. You felt me. You read my pain. And now you belong to me. No, Elijah said, standing his ground. You've had your vengeance. I said your name. The others know the truth now. Evelyn laughed. Truth? This isn't about truth. It never was. She raised one hand and the sky cracked. From the shattered heavens poured more of them. Ghost children falling like raindrops, hitting the ground and standing upright. Heads twitching, eyes blind. Some dragged broken toys. Others held rusted chains. One carried a swing seat, attached to nothing, still dripping with something thick and black. They surrounded Elijah, whispering again. Not chanting, whispering secrets. He tried to block them out, but their words were inside his mind. You should have left. She doesn't forget. The swing never stops. You were chosen. His knees buckled. Evelyn knelt beside him, her presence like a weight on his chest. There is no forgiveness, Elijah. There is only the swing. And now She smiled, revealing jagged teeth. It's your turn to swing forever. The ground opened beneath him. A pit. A rope swing hung over it, stained with rust and something darker. It creaked slowly back and forth above an abyss with no bottom. Hands, dozens of them, reached up from the pit, grasping. No! Elijah screamed, thrashing. I won't be a part of this! But the ghost children were already lifting him, silent, efficient. Evelyn watched, arms folded, her expression unreadable. They placed him on the swing. It was cold, wet. The seat molded itself to his body, straps of shadow curling around his chest and arms. The whispers grew louder. Suddenly, a voice pierced the air. Elijah! It was Maya, then Natalie. Both voices, distant but echoing. They were calling him from outside this place. The sky above rippled. A tear in the fabric of the nightmare opened like a wound. Through it, he could see Maya and Natalie standing in the real world, hands on the stone shouting, the journal glowing between them. Elijah's eyes widened. There was still time. He fought against the shadow straps, twisting and turning. The swing creaked violently. The children screeched, their whispers becoming wails. Evelyn's face twisted. No! She reached for him. But this time, Elijah was ready. He yanked the silver chain around his neck, a small pendant Maya had given him for luck. As Evelyn's hand touched it, she screamed. Her skin sizzled, smoke pouring from her fingers. Elijah used the moment to rip free. He leapt from the swing and fell through the air, straight toward the tear in the sky. The ghost children shrieked, clawing at the edges of the rip as he passed through. And then, impact. Back in the real world. He gasped as the cold forest air slammed into his lungs. He was lying on the dirt, near the grave. The swing set had collapsed. The playground was in ruins. Natalie and Maya were kneeling beside him, their faces filled with terror and relief. Elijah, Maya cried. You were gone. For almost 10 minutes, you weren't breathing. I saw her, he croaked. I saw everything. The ground rumbled again. Natalie looked around. This isn't over. We disturbed something deeper than a ghost. She's not just haunting this place. She owns it. Elijah forced himself up, legs trembling. Then we need to finish this. No more half measures. He turned back to the grave and opened the journal again. But the pages were blank. All of them. Natalie's eyes widened. It used you up. Whatever power was in there, it's gone. Maya shook her head. Then what now? A sound echoed from the woods. Footsteps, not one. Many. Flashlights flickered through the trees. Rangers, hikers, number people, villagers. Their faces pale, hollow-eyed. Some carried tools. Others wore clothing decades out of date. A woman in a torn nurse's uniform. A man in a charred sheriff's jacket. They all walked with purpose, gathering in a ring around the playground ruins. One of them stepped forward. An old man with half his face melted like wax. He looked at Elijah. You brought her back. We didn't mean to, Elijah replied, but she's still here. The man nodded slowly. Then it begins again. What does? Natalie asked. The man looked at the ruined swings. The cycle. He raised a rusted bell from under his coat and rang it once. The sound rippled through the forest like a shiver down the spine of the world. And in the distance, the swings began to move again. The bell's toll still hung in the air, vibrating like a held breath waiting to break. Everyone froze. Elijah stared at the rusted metal loop dangling from the old man's hand. What the hell did you just do? The man didn't answer. Instead, the villagers, all of them, began to hum. Low, dissonant, off-key. The sound burrowed into Elijah's skull, like nails scratching along his brain. Natalie backed away, her hands instinctively covering her ears. Make them stop! But the villagers didn't hear her, or maybe they didn't care. They closed their eyes and began moving in a slow circle around the remains of the playground. Dust rose from the ground in spirals, and the trees around them started creaking, as if groaning under some immense pressure. Maya stumbled toward Elijah. I think they're part of it, part of the ritual. This isn't just haunting, it's a religion to them. Elijah turned toward the old man, grabbing his arm. What cycle are you talking about? The man finally looked at him with milky eyes. She dies. She sleeps. She waits. She wakes. It always comes back. A low wind stirred, cold and dry, cutting through the fog like a blade. From deep within the woods, a faint giggle floated toward them. Then another. Then many. The swings creaked again. This time more than just two. All four swings were moving, back and forth, back and forth, back and... Something landed behind them with a wet slap. They turned. A child, skin pallid, eyes hollow, limbs twisted, stood in the dirt. It grinned, teeth jagged like broken glass. Behind it, more emerged. Dozens, hundreds. From the trees, from beneath the earth, even from the shadows cast by the villagers' flickering lanterns. Evelyn was no longer alone. The children of the playground had come home. Natalie drew a rusty hatchet she'd taken from the cabin. Maya grabbed an iron crowbar. Elijah reached for the shovel still lying near the grave. They stood back to back. The ghost children didn't charge. They circled, smiling, watching, as if waiting for some unseen cue. And then Evelyn stepped forward. Her form had changed again, taller, more defined. Her black dress was now layered in ash, the hem trailing smoke. Her hair floated around her like it was underwater. Eyes as wide as the sky, as deep as the grave. "You woke them all up," she whispered. "Not just me." Natalie tightened her grip. "Then we'll put them back." Evelyn's head twitched. "I tried to sleep," she said, stepping onto the shattered remains of the swing set. "I begged to be left alone. But you read the words. You opened the wound again." She extended her arms and the ghost children screamed, all of them, a shriek that shattered branches and made the ground split. The villagers collapsed to their knees, still humming, now bleeding from their eyes and ears. Elijah looked down. The grave had reopened. From within it came not dirt, but chains, barbed, rusted, and slithering like snakes. They coiled around the bones still buried below, jerking them from the earth. A skeleton rose, but it didn't collapse, it stood. Then flesh grew onto it, rapidly pulsing muscle, pale skin, wet black eyes, an echo of Evelyn, but distorted. Not the girl, not the ghost, something older, hungrier. Natalie whispered, "That's not her anymore." The air warped. The sky turned deep crimson, and then the hallucinations began. Elijah blinked, and he was back in his childhood bedroom. His father's voice echoed down the hallway. "Come out, son! Come swing with us!" He turned and saw his father's face melting like wax. He screamed. Maya was walking through fire, but the fire didn't burn her. It laughed. Each flame became a child's face, screaming, "Why didn't you save me?" Natalie stumbled through a field of blood-soaked toys, dolls missing eyes, stuffed animals impaled on sticks. And the swing in the center, it had her mother tied to it. All three of them fell to their knees, caught in their own nightmares. Evelyn hovered over them now, larger than life, arms stretched wide. "You are in my mind now, my playground." But something shimmered at Elijah's side. The pendant, the one Maya had given him. It glowed again, brighter this time. He gripped it, and the pain in his palm returned. The symbol he had drawn in blood back at the cabin, now burned into his skin. A seal, the last of the protection the journal offered. With a scream, he shoved the pendant into the dirt, pressing his blooded palm against it. Light exploded outward. The hallucinations broke. The sky pulsed. Evelyn screamed and recoiled, her form flickering like a dying flame. The ghost children wailed in unison, some vanishing into ash, others shrinking into shadows and fleeing into the earth. Maya coughed and stood. "Whatever you did, do it again." "I don't know if I can," Elijah shouted, clutching the pendant as it cracked and burned his skin. The grave began to collapse. Chains snapped. A roar, deep, guttural, inhuman, shook the forest. The flesh echo of Evelyn exploded into dust. But the real Evelyn still stood, and now she wept. Dark tears hit the dirt and sizzled like acid. "You're trying to erase me," she sobbed, "like they did." Natalie stepped forward. "We're trying to free you." The weeping stopped. Evelyn looked at her. For just a second, her face softened. But then the sky above tore open. From it fell more of them, not children this time. Adults, each one screaming, twisted into grotesque reflections of who they once were. Former victims, maybe. Or maybe just those who had tried and failed before. They landed like meteors, and the forest began to burn. The flames were unnatural. They didn't spread from tree to tree. They leapt, crawling up trunks and sliding sideways through the air like serpents made of fire. The air itself shimmered, thick and impossible to breathe. A scream, deep, guttural, ripped through the forest, followed by another. Then silence, and then a laughter, a cruel, mocking cackle that echoed in every direction. Elijah, Maya, and Natalie stood in the eye of the chaos, surrounded on all sides by burning woods, melting memories, and writhing spirits clawing their way out of the very fabric of reality. Evelyn hovered above them now, her body shifting shape by the second. One moment, she was a small girl in braids. The next, she was a shadow with wings made of chains and teeth. "You can't stop it," she said, voice distorted, as if speaking from underwater and fire at the same time. "This has happened before. You think you're the first to fight back?" Elijah turned, spotting another figure among the falling ash. A woman. She looked lost in time. Cloaked in an old raincoat, her eyes completely black, holding a broken lantern. She didn't blink. She simply watched them. "Elijah," Natalie said, pointing. "You see her too, right?" He nodded. "Who is she?" "I don't know," Maya said, "but I don't think she's one of them." The woman lifted her hand and pointed to the swings. They were moving again, but only one was occupied. A boy, no older than 6, blonde, pale. His feet dangled lifelessly as the swing rocked, chains creaking louder than before. A second swing moved beside him, empty, and yet it moved in perfect sync. Then a third swing, then a fourth, back and forth, back and forth. "Stop looking at them," Elijah shouted, snapping Natalie from her trance. But Maya was already walking toward the set, eyes glassy. "No, no, no!" Elijah grabbed her shoulder. She turned and her face was different, older, hollow, as if she had aged 50 years in 5 seconds. "Elijah, I hear them," she whispered. "I hear the children. They want to go home." He looked into her eyes and saw dozens of small reflections, faces, mouths open, crying out from inside her pupils. Natalie shouted, "We have to get away from this place." The woman in the raincoat shook her head slowly and lifted her lantern high. From its cracked glass spilled a beam of pure white light. It cut through the fire like a sword, slicing the smoke, severing shadows. Evelyn shrieked, recoiling from the light, parts of her form evaporating on contact. The ghost children howled and scattered. Elijah felt something pull inside him, the same seal on his palm pulsing again, echoing in tune with the light. "She's holding it back," he shouted. "We need to do something while we have the chance." Natalie looked down at the ground, which had split open further, revealing symbols burned into the earth. "These markings, they're not random. They're part of a map, a ritual." "The journal's pages went blank," Elijah reminded her. "We don't need the journal," she snapped. "I remember. Before it disappeared, I saw something. A sequence. A path." The woman in the raincoat stepped forward, closer now, her face still a complete void of expression. She reached out and touched Natalie's forehead. Natalie gasped, her eyes rolling back for a second. Then clarity returned. "I know what to do." She began drawing in the dirt with the head of the shovel. Lines, circles, symbols. Elijah helped. So did Maya, now visibly shaking but back in control. They worked fast, carving runes, connecting sigils, forming what looked like a massive summoning circle, but inverted. Not to bring something into the world, to send something out. The trees around them bent unnaturally, forming arches that hissed and groaned. The swing set started melting, its chains dripping into the soil like blood made of iron. Evelyn's voice fractured, echoing across realities. "I was the first," she wailed. "I was the first child they forgot. And now, they all swing for me." The ground cracked beneath her, revealing not just the abyss, but entire rooms. Dark halls filled with furniture floating in midair, School lockers bleeding ink, paintings that moved like video screens showing flashes of terror, trauma, and torment, as if the playground had become a twisted museum of every lost child's final moments. Elijah stood in the center of the circle as Natalie completed the final mark. "It's ready," she said, "but it needs a catalyst, something real, something of her." Maya gasped. "The braid!" "What?" Elijah turned. She pointed at the base of the swing set. Among the roots and bones and rusted chains lay a single braid, old, dried, but unmistakable. Evelyn's. Elijah ran for it. Evelyn saw him. She screamed again, sending ghost children flying at him like arrows. They clawed and shrieked, their hands ice cold, their mouths impossibly wide. One latched onto his leg, another his shoulder. He screamed but didn't stop. With one final lunge, he grabbed the braid. It pulsed with heat and sorrow. Thousands of memories slamming into his mind at once. Evelyn's mother locking the door. Evelyn's screams in the dark. Evelyn crying at the swing while teachers ignored her. Forgotten, abandoned, erased. He staggered back to the circle and threw the braid into its center. The circle ignited. Pure white light surged upward, forming a pillar that shot into the sky like a beacon. The woman with the lantern lifted her hand and vanished. The ghost children froze. The air shattered, and Evelyn screamed, not with rage, but with grief. "No," she whispered as her form broke apart. "Don't let them forget me again." Elijah dropped to his knees. The pillar of light turned violet, then red, then black. It imploded. The ground shook. The swing stopped moving. All four of them. The air was dead silent. No screams, no whispers, no movement. Just the sound of Elijah, Natalie, and Maya breathing. The forest was still, too still. Natalie stood up, shaking. "Did we do it?" Maya didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the swing set, because something was swinging again. Just one. Back and forth. Back and forth. But this time there was no wind. It was back. Despite the ritual, despite the light, despite the sacrifice of sanity and the collapse of a world that was never supposed to exist, it was still back. The swing moved slowly, methodically, like a pendulum counting down towards something inevitable. But it was no longer Evelyn who sat upon it. It was empty, and yet it moved. Natalie took a cautious step forward, her boots crunching broken glass and singed pine needles. No wind, no ropes, no ghosts, no rules, Maya muttered, still staring, barely blinking. Elijah remained on one knee, his blood-caked hand gripping the now cracked pendant. The seal had faded from his palm, the warmth gone. He felt cold again. So cold it was as though the light had taken everything it could from him and then left. The forest, though mostly intact, had changed. The trees leaned slightly inward now, their trunks gnarled like twisted fingers, stretching toward the swing set. The sky was neither day nor night. It shimmered like static on an old television. "We closed the circle," Elijah said, his voice hoarse. "We sealed her. That should have been the end." "Yeah," Natalie whispered. "Then why is that damn swing still moving?" They turned as one to face the playground. The grave had closed. The symbols had burned away. The woman in the raincoat was gone, her lantern no longer lighting any path. But something remained, a scent. Not quite death, not quite decay. It was memory. And then, without warning, a voice, high, childlike, familiar. "One of you must stay." Maya's breath hitched. "What was that?" Elijah looked around. It wasn't her. That didn't sound like Evelyn. Another voice followed. "Someone always stays to watch the swing." Natalie turned pale. "I remember. The journal said something about a keeper. A child lost cannot be taken unless the door is held open." Elijah stood, wincing as his joints cracked. "So someone stayed behind each time to keep the curse going?" Maya nodded slowly. "Maybe not willingly. Maybe the ritual only ends when someone replaces the missing presence." The swing creaked louder. Elijah looked back at the set. Now it was not empty. A silhouette sat in the swing, small, still. It looked like Evelyn, but different, transparent, shimmering like a heat mirage. Her face was blank, her hands clasped. Natalie whispered, "We burned her memory, but something is still holding her here." "No," Maya said, stepping forward. "Not something. Someone." Behind them, the trees cracked. Figures emerged. Not ghosts this time. People. Dozens of them. Eyes glazed, limbs stiff, like puppets walking in sync. The villagers. But they looked younger now. Faces changed. All of them, every single one, had the same eyes. Eyes like Evelyn's. Hollow, unblinking. One of them opened their mouth. "The swing must never stop." Natalie grabbed Elijah's wrist. "If no one sits in it, it starts over." "And if someone takes her place?" Maya asked. "They become the watcher," Elijah said, dread settling over him like a weight. "Forever." The villagers began to hum again, that dissonant, bone-vibrating tune that had nearly driven them mad earlier. Only this time the hum was softer, almost mournful, like a lullaby played backward. One of the villagers stepped forward, a woman with gray hair and a twisted smile. She looked directly at Maya. "You're the one who felt them. You carried their voices. You're closest to them now." Maya froze. "No!" Natalie barked. "She's not staying." But Maya wasn't listening. She stepped toward the swing. Elijah moved to stop her, but she raised her hand. "I saw their memories," she said. "I saw what they went through. They weren't monsters. They were children, left behind, forgotten. That's all Evelyn was." She touched the chain of the swing. The mirage vanished. The swing stopped. Dead still. Maya turned to them, smiled sadly. "Maybe someone needs to remember." Elijah stepped forward, fury and fear colliding inside him. "No, that's not the answer." "It's not the answer," Maya said. "It's the price." She sat. The swing creaked once, then again. Then it began moving, back and forth, back and forth. Elijah stared, unable to breathe. Natalie shook her head. "There's got to be another way. We could—" But the forest had begun to fade. The trees lost color. The ground went still. The villagers vanished one by one. The air lifted, as if a pressure had been released, and the light returned. Not from the pendant, from the swing. Maya glowed faintly, her outline flickering like candlelight. Elijah stepped to the edge of the circle, not daring to cross it. "Maya," she smiled. "You stopped the curse. You both did, but someone had to stay and make sure it never begins again." Her voice grew fainter. The swing's creak became a heartbeat. "Tell them," she whispered. "Tell everyone. Remember us." A rush of air blasted through the clearing, and Elijah and Natalie were thrown back. When they opened their eyes, they were outside the forest. It was morning, real morning. Birds chirped, wind rustled the leaves. They looked back. No swing set, no trees leaning inward. Just a normal park, with children playing, laughing, running. Natalie collapsed to her knees, shaking. Was it really over? Elijah looked down at his palm. The seal was gone. In its place was a single burn mark, the shape of a swing, and from far, far away, fainter than the wind, he thought he heard it, creak, back and forth, back and forth. He looked at Natalie. "We'll tell them," he said. "We'll never forget." The end. Thank you for staying through all 8 generations of the cursed playground, where the swings move on their own. What do you think really happened in that forest? Was Evelyn a victim, or something far worse? Was Maya's sacrifice truly the end, or just the beginning of another cycle? Let's talk theories. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more horrifying tales just like this one. And remember, the next time you walk past an empty swing, don't look back.